Today we give the downstairs neighbor a heaping dose of malicious compliance. We'll get to that in a bit, but first, keep sticking me with impossible schedules and terrible workers? It's not my fault nothing else got done and you look bad. Back when I was in college, I would come home over the summer and winter breaks and work at a certain pretzel stand. I'd been there for a few years, casually knew the owners, but we weren't on a first-name basis. Worked with their son when he'd pick up shifts. Great kid, one of the few insanely wealthy people who never acted entitled, and worked hard when he came to a shift. And I knew the GM really well from the past few years working there. GM of our 2 stores and 1 mall location had to take a month off for an injury, leaving 2 very dumb managers in charge. One refused to work anything but an opening to 3 shift, 5 days a week, and the other would reluctantly do short closing shifts. Neither were competent at writing a schedule, and both just wanted to look good while doing 0 extra work. To top it off, we had a slew of newbies, including Change Girl. Don't get me wrong, I get it, math is hard, that's why the register tells you the change to give to someone, but it doesn't tell you which bills or coins to give. The GM texted me and begged me to work the second location as a sort of assistant manager and to come do some PM shifts to close up and do drawers. I agreed because he was fielding constant complaint from the 2 full-grown in their 40s adults whining about their schedules. However, I was blissfully unaware just how incompetent everyone was. Short AM shift manager hired Change Girl with no interview. Other manager literally didn't bother learning names with his "everyone do everything so I don't have to" attitude. I started doing drawers and one was always off. Short, over, math on the daily report not making sense. I pointed it out to both managers who ignored it. Then, my shifts at our second in-mall location kicked in, and Change Girl became my second person in the AM whose job it was to come in an hour before opening, 1 hour after me, and run down to the main location to get restocking stuff and the change drawer while I made all the dough and prepped for the day. She was never on time. She couldn't follow a list and brought the wrong stuff constantly, despite a very good cook working downstairs who would have happily helped. But nope, she's texting again. It started to become me sprinting around making everything, removing trays from the oven, dipping pretzels in butter, rotating everything, packing up orders I was taking, while she stared into space or confused drink cup sizes again. I couldn't take a break or clean up because she literally couldn't comprehend an order, and getting her to start cleaning anything was a Herculean task of arguing over why she wasn't supposed to have fake nails and how that wasn't a reason she couldn't mop a floor or wipe off a counter. It peaked when she walked away from an open cash drawer to ask me how to make 37 cents. Apparently my quarter dime 2 pennies wasn't adequate because she brought handfuls of coins over and asked me which one was the dime. She only had her dad's credit card. She's never used cash. She panicked and made me drop everything once because she hit $5 and the person gave her 10. I begged the AM manager to send help and she refused, instead scheduling a third worker for herself. It culminated with being scheduled to pull a 15-hour day with only Change Girl working for half the day. Idiotic managers sent out a message with a huge list of new cleaning and stocking expectations, plus no empty store rule, aka I wasn't going to be able to go to the bathroom, have a break, or even get anything extra done, and that was all going to be my fault. I was over it. I texted my recovering GM to please look at the schedule, my reports on the disasters, and begged for help. He told me to fully comply and to just wait. So I maliciously and through sheer pettiness comply, and it's a nightmare. Lo and behold, Change Girl shows up, finally does a rundown to get restocking, and by then we're open, with no cash drawer. I'm trying to serve customers and it's a mess. Suddenly, the son of the owners show up, ask what's up, and I explain. He offers to go get the drawer for me and does, bringing it back to me before Change Girl gets back. He watches as she finally returns another 15 minutes later and brings all the wrong stuff again. Doesn't unload, asks how to make change, and won't get off her phone. He leaves, and then change girl's shift is over and she's gone. I'm solo, while downstairs has 4 workers. The rest of the day is heck, and nothing gets done. AM manager comes back to the mall for personal shopping after her very short 4-hour shift earlier and proceeds to yell at me for the disaster, just as the owners show up. She's pulled away for a little chat about her scheduling habits, and I talked to the other owner about the entire day's mishaps. Turns out GM texted them a heads up and to go in today and see the camera footage. I finally get to go home after 2 workers from downstairs are sent to help. The next morning, I wake up to the most glorious phone call. The AM manager will now only be working with change girl, and any discrepancy in the drawer being that manager's fault. The AM manager has zero idea how to do literally anything except dip pretzels in butter and bag up orders. She doesn't even know how to make the pretzels. Neither does change girl. Both managers now have to do all their silly requirements they demanded the other workers do, and schedules were being taken over permanently by GM on paid leave. I never got a crap schedule again. Change girl got let go in 2 days. AM manager was fired in a week after the owner started monitoring her every day. The other manager kinda got their act together when our location was sent to temp from another store, and I got a raise as soon as our GM came back. Honestly, this is a little bit of give an inch. The owners or the GMs, whatever the situation, gave an inch of space, and these workers took advantage of that as much as possible and just laid around. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy awesome stories of malicious compliance, why not hit that subscribe button down below? That said, our next story is Just Keep 'em. A little over 6 years ago, my husband was at the grocery store, and right outside the door, he found this skin and bones dirty fluff ball. He had a paw that seemed to have been crushed at some point. Well, he brought him home, we got him cleaned up and fed him. He was just a kitten, but devoured 2 full cans of cat food. Clearly very hungry. Well, we did the right thing. We took a picture of him and posted him on Facebook, asking if he belonged to anyone, and said we were happy to keep him if he didn't have a home. Someone claimed him, so we returned him. The next day, another person found him. She also posted. Same person claimed him. The new person asked if she could pick him up because her husband was out with the car. She said she couldn't and told the rescuer to just put him outside and he'll find his way home. The rescuer lived about 2 miles away from her. It was freezing outside, snow on the ground. Rescuer said she wasn't comfortable with that. Some people who had seen our post and the new post started politely suggesting that it would be safer to keep him inside. His owner lived next to a busy street across from the grocery store where my husband originally found him. She started getting angry and defensive, saying it was impossible to keep him inside, blah blah blah. His crushed paw was brought up and she said he was just fine. Then she said, "If you think you know better than me what's best for my cat, just keep him." Okay. The second rescuer messaged us, since she had found our previous post, and said she couldn't keep him because she already had enough pets, and asked if we still wanted him. We said, absolutely. My husband went and picked him up. The original owner really lost her crap then. She started messaging us saying that she was calling the cops and we stole her cat. I replied with a screenshot of her comment saying to keep him. We took him to the vet. The vet estimated that he was about 8 months old. He said the paw didn't seem to be causing him any pain, so an x-ray wasn't necessary unless that changed. Neutered him, gave him his shots, flea meds, ear mite meds, and wormer. For our 2 resident cats, as well as fleas because ear mites and worms are very contagious. Resident cats Connor and Murphy hissed at the new kitty. We named him Mickey for about 2 days. Then they were all friends. As I mentioned earlier, it's been 6 years. Mickey's never once tried to get out. He's partial to my husband, but will cuddle with the rest of us if my husband isn't home. Guess he remembers who saved him. As for the original owner calling the cops, if she did, they told her to kick rocks. They never showed up. I saved that screenshot though. All 3 of our boys are very happy and healthy indoor cats. I think the only person that deserves to be put outside for hours 2 miles away from home is that original owner. Our next story is triple the cost of travel because corporate has a discount? Sure. I was supposed to go on assignment in Toronto for about a month and a half, so I find myself a nice studio apartment right across the street from the office. This was quite a while ago, way before Airbnb. I submit my options to the travel department and they deny it, saying I should get a hotel instead at one of XYZ chains. So I look up hotels and find one that was a couple subway stations away, but even with our discount code, it was double the amount. I go back to the travel department and explain that not only is it much more expensive, but it would also incur additional costs. Not to mention, it would be more comfortable to live somewhere with a small kitchen and a washing machine for a month and a half. Their reply was, well, getting that apartment would mess up our metrics. We have volume discounts with several hotel chains, and we know you'll be traveling for about 40% of your time, so we can exactly forecast your travel cost. At the end of my trip, my expenses were tripled compared to what I've spent on that apartment. Since I wouldn't have needed subway rides, we also couldn't get a pass, had to expense individual tickets, would have used a couple of detergent bottles instead of extremely expensive hotel cleaning service, and would cook breakfast and dinners instead of going to restaurants. At that time, we didn't have a daily allowance. We would expense everything instead. You can imagine I was going to the nicer restaurants, didn't have a hard limit, plus you could flag one dinner a week as a client dinner, and would have all of my laundry and dry cleaning done a day before I left. So I had a full clean bag of clothes when I got home. Plus, on days I walked to work, I'd still grab the used subway ticket from a colleague, so I'd have 2 for each day. I got sets of 10 tickets, so I'd exchange unused ones and my colleagues would commute for free some days. The policy also allowed 20 minutes of calls from the hotel. I was based in Europe, and you know how expensive roaming charges are, plus the hotel's premium. I could have used Skype, but hey, it's in the policy. This was all on the company card, so I wouldn't keep any money at the end of it, as I might have with an allowance, but I did profit to the max. And since most of my trips were a week long, there was a huge difference in cost. So it got flagged at the end of the year audit, and the finance department started asking questions. And since my department was very mobile in general, they found other stupid, wasteful, and annoying policies. For example, car rentals are forbidden if there's a public transportation option. So I have 2 $150 taxi rides from the airport to the client's town and back instead of renting a car for that week at about $80. Lots of policies were changed following this, and I was getting my travel-related replies from someone new in that department afterwards. Just because you got a general structure doesn't mean you have to commit to it every single time. Sometimes going off-road can save you some money, and if you don't realize it, the person that takes your job just might. Our next story is, downstairs neighbor demands we walk normal, so we do, and she hates it. We've been living in this apartment for 3 years. It's old, it's cozy, the building's around 20 years old, and though the appliances and wall paint and carpets have been replaced, the floor has not. It's painfully thin. Every step we take creaks and groans, and it's annoying. Living on the 3rd floor, we know it's gotta even be more so for whoever lives below us. So we've done our best to be mindful of their comfort and try not to make too much noise. We had a new downstairs neighbor move in a couple months ago, and she is not convinced that we are literally tiptoeing around our apartment. Every time I get home and close my door, she's banging on my floor with a broom or something. Every time I cross the living room, banging. Every time I vacuum, banging. Every time my dog chews on a bone, she bangs on the dang floor and it scares my poor dog. We've been living on eggshells trying to be courteous, but she's driving us mad with her insistent banging every time we take a step. I guess she'd finally had enough because she came upstairs to yell at us the other day. "You're too loud, you need to be courteous and walk normal, you have neighbors," she yells. She almost looked like she was going to cry. It was disturbing. We felt bad. My husband tried to explain that, "Ma'am, we do our best to be quiet, but these floors are really old and they creak. We're not stomping or jumping or running. We're living, but we'll continue to be considerate." She was not impressed with his answer and continued to argue. "Well, I lived on a 1st floor before, and my other neighbors weren't loud like you. It's so loud and my job is so stressful, so I want you to stop stomping. I don't want to be a mean person, but I really think you're too loud." So you know what we agreed to do? To walk like normal people. Okay, we'll walk normally, we said. This is exactly what we'd been doing, nothing different. So she still bangs on the floor and gives us nasty looks, but we're being normal people who walk normal and don't stomp around. Our dog is a normal dog who chews on bones and walks from his bed to his food bowl and gets excited when it's time for walkies. We are so normal. We'll be moving in the next month, so it's no skin off my back. Hope the next tenant doesn't have kids, or maybe I do. And then she'll finally understand that we are normal people who walk normal. Maybe she'll miss us. I would love nothing more than for this grumpy neighbor to get a crying baby upstairs. It would just be so fitting. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another awesome malicious compliance story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, click on that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.